Okay, this video is or screencast is going to be useful for your first question in part B of your skeleton muscles test, and we're going to look at the structural features of our skeleton which suit the function of protection. So in other words, why are our bones good at protecting? Now, as we've said in class, and is common sense, our bones protect vital organs such as the brain, the heart, the lungs, etc. They keep us protected from blows and other impacts that may well cause damage to our vital internal organs such as the brain. So you've got a lovely looking fella right there in the middle of the page, and we're going to pretend that naughty Graham Rusk is at the side of this page and he's just throwing an American football at my head. Now, if we take that as an example, we need to think about how the skeleton is good at protecting the brain from internal damage. And the first thing you can say, indeed, in this answer is to name the type of bone that is suitable for protection. And that would be a flat bone. And by all means, give an example. And in this example, we're going to use the cranium. Now, other examples of flat bones might be ribs, might be the scapula, for example. They are equally as good examples to use, but in this example we're going to use the head because I've got a nice shiny head and you can see it on the little image in the middle of the page. So, what makes this cranium, this flat bone, or this series of flat bones that are fused together in fact, good at protecting the brain? Well, the first things first is you can see on the picture that my brain or my cranium is curved. And so that curve means that it deflects impacts. It deflects impacts, which is a structural feature. We don't walk around with a blockhead like that. What a lovely, lovely image. So if we walked around with a blockhead and something hit the side of the head like that, then we'd obviously feel the full force and we would be in pain. And we take the full force of that and obviously the brain would be rattled around inside there. So the fact that the flat bones are curved means that it deflects impact. You can also see from the top of my bonds there that the flat bones are generally smooth, and that also helps us to deflect impacts on our smooth bones. You know, if you think about the cranium, if you think about the ribs, the rib cage is rounded, and you think about the scapula, it's very smooth, and so it doesn't get caught on anything. So obviously if we had a spiky flat bones, which some animals do have, then you know, we're running along, this thing can get caught on something and have the same effect. It can really sort of take the full impact of things. I hope you're appreciating my creativity here. So they're curved and they're smooth, which helps to deflect impacts, and it also helps to wrap around the vital organs. So if my brain was sort of this shape, then the fact is that the cranium wraps around the brain to provide more angle of, or a greater angle of protection. Consider my brain being covered by a long bone, for example. It would be protected from above, but it wouldn't be protected from the sides, and therefore we'd need another long bone, and that wouldn't give us the curved shape. So flat bones like the cranium are curved and smooth because it deflects impacts. It's also curved because it gives us a greater angle of protection around the vital organs. Now, if we compare that to a long bone, so if we compare that to the long bone, and let's say, I don't know, we It's a rough drawing of a scapula. Now, if you compare which one you would prefer, which type of bone you'd prefer to be protecting us against impacts, then we've got the long bone here and the flat bone here. It doesn't take a genius to work out that we would much prefer the flat bone to protect us because it's more like a shield, and that's because they have broad surfaces. They have a larger surface area. Good scientific technical terms that you can throw in there to show more understanding. Now, flat bones have broader surfaces, they have a larger surface area, and therefore common sense says they're better for protecting our vital organs. If we had a lot of long bones side by side, then we'd have holes in where we were protecting, and therefore they just wouldn't protect us as well. Okay, so they're quite obvious, they're quite common sense answers which you're going to have to practice to get into some kind of sentence. Now, if we looked at the structure of a flat bone, so if we looked at the structure of our cranium or scapula, for example, what we would see is an absolute masterpiece of design. And the outer layer of the cranium would be compact bone. Now, I do another screencast on compact bone, particularly when we look at the structure of the long bone, so we're not going to cover that in too much detail. And we also have another lower layer of compact bone, and in the middle we have spongy bone or cancellous bone. So you can see that this resembles a sandwich, and it's actually technically, and I'm not joking, is sometimes called the stiffened sandwich. I think that's what Maria describes it as. The stiffened sandwich. You've got two layers of compact bone with a spongy bone filling. Spongy bone. Spongy bone. Now, this design is crucial for protection of our vital organs, and it links to roughly the structure of cardboard. If our cranium or our flat bones were just one piece of compact bone and solid compact bone, you'd find that it would be quite brittle. So if you sort of push down in the middle there, you'd end up snapping it. Now, that snapping, if that was the compact bone on our cranium, for example, would obviously damage the inside of the brain, and we don't want that. So a simple one layer of compact bone is not going to be very good for protecting the brain. So what happens is this two layers of compact bone, if we get an impact here, then what would happen is we kind of get a depression in this compact bone here, but the inside, the actual brain, which would be down here, obviously is happy. It's not being impacted like it has done up here. If you have one layer of compact bone, this compression would damage the brain, whereas if we've got two layers of compact bone with a spongy middle, this break in the compact bone would help protect the brain. And also, if you think about it further down the line in terms of the cranium, then this little impression here would not reduce the structure or the integrity of the cranium itself, whereas this might collapse the whole thing. It's very, very difficult to collapse that cranium because of the structure of the flat bones. The second feature is this spongy bone here, this internal filling, and it's called spongy bone not because it's soft like a sponge. That's a real key difference, or a key thing you need to remember. It's called spongy bone because it's porous, because it's got lots of little holes in it like a sponge has. It refers to the holes and not the soft structure. In fact, spongy bone is very hard, and what it does, it actually forms support beams between the two layers of compact bone, and that spongy bone can be made and deposited at areas of stress. So it really holds up these two layers of compact bone, and it really is really good for resisting stresses. The fact that it's hollow means that it is very, very light, but it is also very, very strong. And so you can see that the stiffened sandwich gives us an excellent structure for the protection of the vital organs. Now, if you look at the cranium, if you look at the scapula and the ribs, they all have this similar structure where there's two layers of compact bone with a spongy bone middle, and it's referred to as the stiffened sandwich. How does this help protect the vital organs? Well, it reduces increases the integrity of the bone itself, because it's not just one layer. So if it was broken in any particular part, then all we'd see is a depression in there, and the whole cranium would, or the scapula would be intact and still function to protect. It wouldn't collapse in on itself. And the main reason why it would be like that is because of these trabeculae, this spongy bone. I'm going to write that, trabeculae. That is the support beams that are made from the spongy bone. That's the name given to the spongy bone that forms support beams, trabeculae. And that is what keeps the two layers of compact bone in place and gives them support so that they don't crush in when they're impacted. Okay, and that's your answer for explaining the structure of the skeletal system in relation to protection. They're curved, they're smooth, they are broad, and they have a stiffened sandwich structure. They are like this because the curved and smooth feature helps deflect impact. They also provide a greater angle of protection. Flat bones give a much broader surface, so they give a larger surface area for protection. They cover a greater area. And the flat bones have a stiffened sandwich structure, which means they have two layers of compact bone with a spongy middle. The spongy middle acts as support beams in the form of trabeculae, which are strong and light and precisely placed along lines of stress. So if you get a lot of stress, then the cells of the bone deposit them and put them in particular places of weakness. And the two layers of compact bone are extremely hard and resist forces and sort of protect the brain because they're extremely strong, which the structure of compact bone I'll do in a different session. Okay, so I hope that helps, and I hope what you're going to have to do is try and get those key terms written down in a nice sort of sentence essay form. Now that will take practice, but the main point of this session was for you to actually understand the information. We can practice and practice and practice writing it down, which is a different skill. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing what you can write as a result.